I'm recording this, everybody. Hope you're okay with it, and it will go on YouTube. So, okay. Awesome. So we have Angelina. I can't pronounce your last name.
Paralikis.
Very. Angelina, I have a friend, so I have a sense of humor with her, so I'm not being rude, right? Anyway, she's a medium, a trance medium, and you do healing, which I wasn't going to bring up because she wasn't worried about it, but she does healing, and she does healing through symbols, different symbols than what we are used to in our healing with Reiki. But you want to tell them about yourself a little bit, Angelina?
Sure. Thanks everybody for coming on. Great to see you. I see some familiar faces, which is very nice. My journey started a very long time ago. Like I'm sure some of you here go back some time ago when you were a child and you were having some experiences that you couldn't understand. That was part of my journey when I began. As far as I remember, going back maybe, I don't know, 5, always having the same experience every day, being quite awake. I could not understand it. And until my mother heard me one day, sort of talking to myself. Again, I couldn't put into words what was going on. All I can tell you is that I didn't know what it was. So I just kept repeating, go away, go away. And then it finally went away. And then it came back again, whether you like it or not. And if you're meant to be opening that spiritual door, it will come knocking on your door again, which it did for me when I was in my sort of late 30s. And like with many of us, we have to go through sometimes a bit of a profound experience or a shake-up in our lives, in our personal lives at times, that can make us just look a little bit deeper. And that's what happened to me. And everything started very fast, and it made sense somehow. Somehow it made sense. So for me, by that time I had come back to Cyprus because when I was about 8.5, my family and I moved to the UK. So I didn't come back until I was 27. So being away from a big country where there was a lot of opportunities to study and to go to workshops and all sorts of things, that was away from me. So being on a small island, I really didn't have anything around me to look to participate in. In fact, the local and the good bookshop that we had, if you went to ask for spiritual books, they would look at you as if you're a big gaga and kind of point to the back staircase somewhere on the floor, Believe me, it's very, very different now. A number of years later, they actually called me from the same bookshop and they said, can you come and help us order some books here? Because there's some more people like you, who are interested. So that scene has changed quite a lot over the years. So for me, it's been a journey of really internally trusting all my life. It was never about reaching out to other people because of where I lived.
What made you choose trance?
It chose me, actually, to put it to you this way, because I think we all go through various cycles. Again, it was all about trusting for me. The biggest, I think, turning was in the year 2000, when it all started off with the symbols. That was a big thing and a very unusual thing for me. Having said that, I have to say that I've always been very visual all of my life. So by looking at a scene that they gave me, it was like a language to me. But this was very unusual in the year 2000. And it's been a journey of many, many years. But the trance, I think the communication started happening possibly about 13, 14 years ago. And I didn't realize at the time. When I look back on it, then it made sense because it always happened when I was in sort of long periods of silence. And I noticed that looking back when I used to travel for work in the Far East, actually. I mean, I don't know why Spirit really wanted that, but that's where it took me out for about 14, 15 years. And sometimes I had to walk about 1.5 kilometers through some very wide, sort of natural quiet areas of in nature, because I had a friend of mine that lived at the peak. So I was very lucky to live there, but you had to walk for about 1.5 kilometers every day to get the bus. And then I realized that somebody was talking to me, and I used to say it's not me because it was too intelligent. So I think the communication started like that, but I just wasn't really aware until a couple of years ago. I know you're going to find this very unusual, what I'm going to say, but I sat with a group of people, and one of them was Margaret, that is here now, because they asked me to, link with them once a week. And I've known these 3 or 4 people for many, many years of my life. Anyway, I was leading them in the meditation, wherever we sat together. And then within like 5 or 6 minutes, they show me somebody's face I've never seen before in my life. I saw him standing on a stage. Everything was in a sepia color. It was a stage, it was the floor, it was the curtain. And this person had an old-fashioned microphone in his hands, like, the Fred Astaire type that we used to see. Never saw him before in my life, but he was holding a microphone. So I understood that they were telling me about speaking and communicating to the public. That was the message I got. Well, 24 hours later, I got a message on my email. Possibly I watched something, I didn't recognize it, and I opened it. And then I saw Mark Bedwood, and that was the man that they showed me. And I never, ever saw him ever in my life. So you can imagine the look on my face when I said, oh my God, this is the same man. So I just knew, yeah.
So let me ask you something, Angelina. When you started doing your trance, how was it for you to start learning to blend with spirit?
It's a good question. It's a very different feeling, actually, to working on a mediumistic level. If I can describe it the way that it is for me, working on a mediumistic level, spirit always comes in on my right-hand side. I feel the frequency. I can feel them next to me, and I can see very clearly, always on my right-hand side. This is very different. This requires a different kind of blending. So in the beginning, I was not maybe uncomfortable, but because I was not used to this kind of blending. It happens in a different way. So you have to go through a process of, I think, just using one word, you got to let go, you got to trust. To allow for that, it's an overlay. I would call it an overlay of the energy. I call it an overlay because that's what it feels like to me. You talk about blending, and it's difficult to get that across to people because people think of blending as, like you blend things together, but it's not like that for me. For me, it's like an overlay, and it's that overlaying that becomes a link, that becomes, yes, of course, it becomes a blending, but it becomes a mind-to-mind overlapping. That's how I can describe it to you.
Can I ask you to describe what you mean when we speak about linking?
Yes, linking. It's actually, it doesn't matter for me if you are referring to trance, or if you're referring to simply going into meditation, or if you're doing a trance drawing, or because communication is communication. Therefore, it's coming from another level, which is linked between you and another frequency, which is beyond from your physicality. Therefore, it's got a link on a frequency level. That's my understanding of it. And that's why I was referring to frequencies and overlaying and things like that, because it is a frequency. It is a link. But the one source and the one link for me is your heart. That's how I teach people. When I'm asking them, I always use the words, bring your mind to your heart. And somehow when you do that for me, it immediately just shifts all your energy. It anchors it. And I found it fascinating the last 2 years, where a lot of the communication has been developing, that they made such a reference all the time to the heart. We learn through the frequency of the heart. We expand through the frequency of the heart. everything is through the heart. So at one point, just a few months ago, when I was working with a group that I have now for the last 9 months, and one or two of them are here, and it was in November, only last month. And I was thinking about this linking. They actually gave me something that I found quite fascinating. So I can read it to you if you like. And
Yes,
I found that was quite interesting. They said each time you link with the core of your frequencies, you activate your light that is part of the frequency of the one light of the Creator. You send a note of love that rings like a signal of your own song that is part of the orchestra of the sound of the light. And as you do this, it sends signals to all the key notes that resonate on the same frequency. We'll come back to that in a minute, because I think that's an important aspect. Waves of this one light are then echoed from your heart frequency like a ripple into the universes of the beyond and beyond. For you are a small fragment of this universal light that resides within the one true light. And that one true light resides within you all at the same time, and there is no separation. So as you sit in your stillness, you allow yourself to open the opportunities to become in unison with all that was, all that is, and all that will be.
amazing.
And I think that was quite beautiful. And I think what happens is each one of us, from my understanding, carries a unique frequency because we are so unique as a soul. Our patterns are so unique. Our frequencies are so unique because it's everything that we have ever been that is carried within our frequencies. So when you actually may come into this lifetime with a particular pattern of frequency of understanding, it actually has an encodement of everything that you have ever been. Except, of course, we don't remember it. But it has a lot to do with our perception, because through this frequency and through this individual path that we decide to come on, comes the personality. And this to me is a key factor, because it's through this personality that all our learning takes place. This is why everybody is so different. My personality is so different to Brandon's, to Nikki's, to everybody else's. Therefore, my perception is different. And my perception is also influenced by the makeup of everything that I have been. It's perceived differently, it is absorbed differently, it is reflected differently. And therefore, my learning will be different.
Amazing.
I see it.
Very amazing. So you and I have spoken about the importance of connecting with your guides. Can you explain your view on that?
Yes, connecting with our guides. Again, of course, I'm going to thank everybody for being here, but it doesn't mean I'm God. It's my understanding, and I will just only obviously speak through my understanding and my truth. But within the lifetime that we decide to walk on, we come along with a family of guides and helpers. There are helpers and there are guides. The guides that we come in are not just anybody. They need to resonate with our own makeup, with our own frequencies, so that they're able to work with us. It doesn't make sense that you would have a guide that doesn't resonate with you, that won't be able to work with you, that won't be able to assist you on your journey. So these guides, they play different roles, and some of them can step forward, in my opinion, some of them can step back depending on what's going on in your life. And some of them make their appearance for the first time in your life, depending on that cycle of evolvement that you are. And again, from my understanding, it's only in the frequency, but that frequency has to do with your personality as well. you are not likely to get. And I very often think about myself, you know, what a kind of personality I might be, and being aware a couple of my guides, and it makes me smile because I think that, yeah, he suits me and I suit him, if you see what I mean.
It's pretty bad because Grumpy's pretty rough around the edges, and I was just laying. I was like, oh, okay.
Well, you may say he's rough around the
You were
edges.
bad either. I forgot you take it to heart, but I say what I mean is it's some of us, like Lisa has a guy, David, who comes through, and Grumpy comes through. I'm just fascinated by what you're saying.
Okay, but let me ask you a question. You said that Grumpy is rough around the edges, right?
Well, he's yeah.
Okay, let's just take what you just said as rough. I didn't take that as negatively. To me, rough, there's a certain there's a certain strength that goes with it. Roughness goes with strength. So maybe Grumpy's energy comes in and particularly at certain aspects of your life where you just needed to have that roughness, you know, that tolerance, that, you know, whatever. So Grumpy's not there because he wants to be grumpy. You know, he comes along because he's got an element of his frequency that is needed for you to use, to be part of.
Thank you.
So that's the way I would see Grumpy, you know, as rough. I think that he plays a big role, you know, to help you where it's needed, I think. So, you know, for me, it's extremely important when we're talking about trance communication or any form of communication. It's so important for us to understand and connect with that spirit team that we have. This is who we have to trust. It's no use seeking beyond and outside. It's got to come from inside you. So it's like, and what they have said to me before is when you meet a friend and you decide that you resonate with them and you want to become friends with them, don't you spend more time with them to get to know them because you like their company? Then it's the same thing with your spirit family and your guides. Then you make more time because you want to be more close to them. You want to understand them because they already know us. Remember that. They already know us. It's us that needs to link on with them and understand them.
Wouldn't you agree that getting to know your guides and taking the time to spend with them, etc., that it would bring your connection for trance, which is the major topic today? Actually, it should be anyway, but for the trance communication to flow?
Absolutely. And I think also, I think it should be done as to allow it to be as natural in its unfoldment as possible. I think that's also extremely important to me. And I don't think I will only refer to trance only. I think with any form of communication that you may be interested in developing, or you may think that it's there because something from your soul has drawn you to this, is to allow yourself to explore that within yourself. And it needs to unfold naturally. And I think that if you don't touch the essence of yourself first, then you will not touch spirit.
Let me ask you, Angelina, everything that you're saying today so far, which I know the answer to, but I'd like to everybody else know, this information comes from your guides, am I right? This is how you learn.
It must be coming from somewhere, I guess. Yes, I think I will say yes, because I am also aware that sometimes when I speak, I am also aware that there's a shifting in my speaking, and then I realize that something is being said before I thought about it. So I suppose I should answer you. I should answer that as yes.
Amazing. So, I'm going trance writing. You do trance writing, but you do trance writing with your eyes open. Am I correct?
Yes, I do. And again, it's the same thing, you know, it works the same thing with me. When you are, when I'm speaking it's the same thing. Everybody, what I need to say at this point is that, you know, there isn't a Bible of codes that everybody needs to go through to say, oh, this is a correct way of communication, and this is the right way that you should be feeling. I think it's all very, very personal, extremely personal. You know, some people might say that you need a very long time to blend, and some people don't. I think you need X amount of time, for sure, because you have to allow for that overlaying to take place. But I don't think there's any code that says, you know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes or whatever. And then you will only know again by sitting by yourself. And the more you trust that, obviously, the quicker it will flow, etc. But in my case, what happens to me is there's sometimes I just get a word, like you know, you type a word somewhere and it becomes a title. And so I've learned to trust it, and then I pull away from it. And then I usually get the first words, and then it becomes a sentence, and then it starts getting repeated. And it's almost like saying, "Oi, are you listening?" You know, let's say it again and again and again. And then I sort of back off, and then I let it flow. And I do that. I always do it the same way. You know, I always allow that. So it's become the way that I work. You know, I just trust that, and then it begins to flow. So it happens that way. But it's fascinating when I begin to type it, you know, because when it's all coming down, I have an understanding in the beginning what they're talking about, but then I lose it, you know, as it flows. And then when I pick it up and I read it again, and especially when I go back after maybe a few weeks and type it, it's mind-boggling. How do I call it, Julie? Simplistically complicated. I think that's the way I'd put it, simplistically complicated, because it's complicated, but they say it in such a way so it becomes simple. You know, simplistic at times.
Well, you know, I'm sorry. When we sat in circle recently, a lot of messages are coming through about the frequency of the feminine and the masculine. You're laughing at me, right? The feminine and the masculine balancing in the universe. And
yeah, I'm smiling because I was just about to open my mouth and say it's just like what we got about the masculine and the feminine, and you beat me to it.
So, spirit. So yeah. I believe your guides gave you a message on that, the feminine.
Yes, they did. And I've got it here because I know we mentioned it before, because when we were talking about the interview, you said, you know, I'd like to raise that because
I like to say that there's confusion, and sometimes as an observer, I kind of pick up on some of the confusion. Also, a lot of people think it's the feminine coming with imbalance with the masculine because the masculine has controlled the universe for so long, but that's really not what it's about. Am I correct? So that's what I wanted to get straight. It has nothing to do with me, female and male. It has to do with frequency. Am I correct? Yeah, Angelina taught me this. I'm just making sure I got it right.
Yeah. And yes, what I said in our discussion one day, that's outside what I'm going to read. What I said, from my understanding, it's not about, you know, the power of the female coming forward, etc., etc. I was saying to Julie, is it by chance that for many, many years now, there's been the talk of the return of the feminine? And some people might have misunderstood that. They might have misunderstood to think that, you know, the feminine is going to become stronger and, you know, we're overpowering the male. It's not about that. It's about the compassion. It's about forgiveness. It's about the embracing. It's about the energy of the feminine that does reside in all of us. And it's about allowing that, not because that side is only available or predominant in the females. It isn't. It's everywhere. It's in nature. And it's about bringing that softness back. It's about bringing that understanding back, that compassion back, that embracing back. And to me, that's what it's all about. But it's also about balancing the energies, because the energies of the male and the female have played a huge part in the evolution of the earth. And this is what they were talking about once they decided one day to talk about the balancing of the males and the female energies. And then parentheses, I just want to make a quick reference without going into it on a deep level. But, you know, many civilizations and cultures all over the world for thousands of years had a very good understanding of the frequencies of the female and the male. And you could even see that in the structures of religious and temples of praying, in architectural mathematical calculations of the balance that needed to be there, even in the places of worship. So it is actually worth investigating or looking at. I mean, for me, it might have been an interest because I had a background, you know, under the School of Architecture. So I was a bit involved in that. You know, later on I moved into more of the art scene. But it's a fascinating area to see how the balancing of the two is very, very important. Even the way that the altars were designed is all to do with the balancing of the two energies. But this is what they had to say: the balance of the male and the female energies. This unity of the male and the female frequencies has played a key role in the evolution of this earth and indeed the universe. It's also the unbalance of the two frequencies that have caused a great deal of the disorder in the evolutional progress. For you are all aware that the two are very much at play in the whole of creation. It's part of the breath of the in and the out breath. You come into this world from the womb in the human species and leave from the upper area of the head energy. Is that not so? Without the two, there's no creation. Even in the species of the earth that are capable of reproducing from the one element, within that, it needs the two necessary energies. Hence, all the receptiveness of your human experiences has a pathway via your heart. But before it reaches there, it is absorbed reflectively through your own individual light designs, your patterns, which are very unique in its structural elements, because it is made up of everything that you have ever been and you have ever existed. This may give you a little understanding of the complexity of your own individual matrix grid. Hence, as an experience is made up of a mixture of emotions and released within your light grid, it is a reflection of your own receptiveness. If that receptiveness contains a fusion of negative responses, it acts as a blocking agent to the neutrons at play within your grid, which sits within the physical body. These neutrons come together and they create a block within your energies, which is the projection as a fusion of complex feelings felt within your physicality. This is why when you hold on to a difficult experience and you bring your awareness to it, different emotions, feelings come up to the surface and sometimes even contradict each other. Hence, this blocked complexity of neutrons, which carry all the color frequencies, are codes needed to be channeled and released through this process. And they made a reference which we have given you. And as you undertake this process, you will find it becomes quicker and more powerful in its release and healing mechanism. And anyway, it was a whole series of things that they gave me: patterns, symbols, colors. And they taught me how we can take an experience and begin to take an experience and break it down in emotion. Because if you take an experience, it can be made up of fear, resentment, rejection, lack of self-esteem, you name it. It's not as simple as saying, I've had an experience. So every one of those feelings has a particular frequency, which resonates to a certain part of your body. And it is a reflection of a color, which also works within your field itself. So in order for us to heal, healing needs to take place on various levels. It's not as simple as that. And it astounds me sometimes how people think that, oh, you know, I've just given you healing, now you can go away. It's not as simple as that at all. So that's my view of it. Because we're rather complex, you know, as human beings, or we like to make things complex.
I am going to ask you a couple of questions that I asked others. Our interview is a little bit different because your knowledge of frequency and stuff, I wanted to hit on that. A lot of people ask about it. They don't have an understanding of frequency. But I am going to ask you some experiences you have with trance. And I have people that message me all the time, want to be in my circles and stuff, and they say they're going to start speaking in trance soon because they're working on their voice box, which we know is not so. What is your explanation of that, of using a voice to speak? Versus, like, I remember the first time a hospital came through, I expected this really strong voice, like a man's coming through the very first time, which when it was my voice, I was like, well, it brought me back. It wasn't his voice at all. But a lot of people still experiencing trance, developing in trance, believe that they will speak like Elaine Thorpe does, which we know is a physical.
Yes, and and I think that there is a difference between communication where your voice box is used to adapt your voice in the sense that it will be colored by the personality and the way that guide speaks. And doesn't mean that it needs to happen that way.
Right.
Because like I said, it's more a mind-to-mind thing that happens. Now, yes, there is for sure a change in the tone of the way that things are said, because they are really a receptiveness of where it's coming from. So it's not you. It's not you, it's through you. So it cannot be you. But it doesn't mean that everybody that communicates, they need to be talking like if it's a Charlie or an Ignatius or, Elaine is rather unusual because her whole voice changes and she sounds like a man.
Right.
But I've seen people having accents, like French accents, etc., because their guide might be speaking like that. But I think for one thing, it's very, very, very different. It's the language itself that's very different. The depth of the language, the depth of the knowledge is very different in itself. And I think that's when you can tell where it's coming from. You've got to listen to the depth of what is being given. And that to me is the essence of the spirit communication.
Well, you guys have told you about the importance of not needing to know.
Yes. Yes.
We had that conversation. Do you want to explain? Because everybody wants to know who their guides are.
I agree. To be honest with you, maybe it's just me, but I've never really ever wanted to know, ever. It was more important for me to understand the energy, to trust it, to listen to what was said. And most of all, for me, if it resonated in my heart, because once I started having the true communication from that level, the first, from my experience, I would feel as if my heart would be just bursting. And, it's almost as if I needed to go through that level first to open that. And it makes sense because, they're on a higher frequency to us, Julie. We know that. So it's about us raising our vibrations. For them, it's more difficult because they need to come to drop theirs, if you see what I mean. It's like a radio wave that needs to come together. Right. So then you begin to get, like you're trying to get a tuner radio. So it's for us to raise our frequencies. And when we raise our frequencies, if we just, let's talk about that just for a little bit, we raise our frequencies primarily by sitting frequently, regularly, because spirit likes commitment. Yes. We must commit ourselves. Firstly, that, and most of all, to ask ourselves why we're doing it. Because our aim should be about serving spirit first. Because to me, this sentence I'm going to use now was one of the most profound sentences that they gave me. They said, by serving spirit first, you have to serve spirit first before you serve yourself. So you have to ask yourself, why am I sitting? What is it that I want? What is it I'm striving for? Is it because I want to join somebody else? Is it because I want to jump on some bandwagon? Is it because I want to blow my own trumpet? What is it for? Because it's not going to come from a point of the truth. It's not going to survive. And we know that. It's not going to survive. So you've got to sit in your space. You've got to sit in your stillness. You've got to connect to yourself. And also raising your frequencies are not only about sitting, it's about acting. Raising our frequencies is also about being kind to other people, about offering our help where we can, about nurturing our own soul. We forget to do that. We forget to nurture our own soul. That is raising your frequency as well. So it's a combination of things.
Letting go of the negativity is a very start, and learning how to stay away from it, control it. It all falls into place with the emotions.
All goes through your heart, because as soon as you get on this path, the first thing that's going to happen to you, and at every stage of your progress, at every stage, doesn't matter. At every stage, there's no way that you're not going to go through your own battle again, your own darkness again, until you get to your next level. And then you're going to face another bit. And then you go to the next level. Because you're not going to zap it just once. It's not a magic sort of wand that it doesn't work like that.
You really do think you're getting through it. And it's like, oh, holy cow, it's happening again. It's like, but on
it's going to happen because
frequency.
it's going to happen on a different level. It's going to happen on a different level. It might be the same experience, but it's going to touch you in a different way, because it might be absorbed in a different way, right?
Sometimes you really think that you've given up, you've purged a lot, and then a year can go by and you realize, oh wow, you still have stuff you need to purge to get to that. But personally, my journey with spirit has helped me to grow, to have compassion, to learn to love more, to see people as spirit, and and to let go of the ego, which is not easy.
It's not easy, and also very often, everything is so emotional on the Earth's plane. We've got such a dense energy of emotion. And it's not an easy one that we have to, if we can manage to stop once a day, that's what one of the communications, I think it was this one here actually, when they were talking about the freedom of the soul.
I was just going to ask you, but first I wanted to ask you for you to explain the way spirit work with us.
In what terms? In terms of communicating with us, or in terms of helping us?
I don't know. You said you wanted to explain the way spirit work with us.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, spirit can work with us on different levels. Sometimes when we're not able to allow ourselves to listen, they're going to have to work with us during our sleep state. Sometimes we come back and we feel as if somebody's been talking to us, or we've gone through some kind of a lesson of some kind, and we don't understand. We have this fuzziness in the head that somebody's been talking to you all night. Of course, at night, we all leave our bodies. Some people maybe are not aware of that or don't understand that. We all leave our bodies, and we are connected to this silver cord, and then we come back, and that silver cord is only broken when we take our last breath and we go back home to our true home. But our spirit guides are always around us, whispering to us, talking to us. But how are you going to listen? Again, you need to sit in your silence. You need to be in your stillness. And why is it sometimes when you're not even doing that so practically, but you may be doing something that almost has like a meditative state, like when you're washing dishes, it's a repetition. Your mind goes blank. Why is it that we get messages then, or something becomes a bit more clearer? Or, ironing, for example, it's a repetition of an action. So it's almost like being in a meditative state where our mind can be just loose in order for us to absorb information. And when you get when you quieten the mind, then it makes it more easier for them to communicate. Because otherwise our brains, our minds are like a monkey, in and out, in and out. We never really focused on the now. What am I doing right now? I'm enjoying that great cup of coffee. We're constantly thinking about the past, about the future, and worrying, and never thinking about the now. That's why even simple acts like a mundane repetition, like I said, of washing dishes or ironing, etc., usually provides for that time where you're going to get a message or a communication through. So they find the time to communicate with us that way.
And the key is to listen.
Yes, to pay
Sometimes
attention.
when you're in that state, you don't realize, you may not even realize you're receiving a message. You have to learn to listen, right?
Yes, and listen, sometimes you think it's yourself. You think it's yourself. And it's the same thing even with the blending and the overlaying that I'm saying now. If you keep thinking that it's me, but you got to listen, because you have to understand where it's coming from. It's not from the mind only. It's got to come from another level first. Like I said, it's linking the heart first, and then the mind will blend as well. This is what it's for me anyway, at least from my experience.
And now the freedom of the soul.
Yeah, I think the other thing I want to say about sitting is to expect the unexpected and expect nothing. Expect nothing. Really expect nothing. And it's the same with when you allow the time for that blending or overlaying. Expect nothing. Expect nothing. You've got to go into the void of nothing, into the nothingness, because it's only in the nothingness that you will receive.
I truly have learned that myself. And I went through a rebellious stage where I thought, well, when I reached that where I was seeing faces and everything, well, why can't you see faces and do trance? But when I really learned to listen, I realized you can't. You can't use your clairvoyance to do trance. You just can't.
No, you've got to go into the nothingness, and really, like I said, expect nothing.
So did you
And
get
I think that's a key thing. But
okay, you're leading toward it. Never mind, go ahead.
Oh no, it's okay. Well, I thought that when I was looking at some of this communication that's been coming in for months, I was looking at it yesterday and I thought, and this really just drew my attention because I thought it was so appropriate for now. Because now we really are addressing our freedom, aren't we? Our freedom has been restricted, suppressed, put in a stillness, call it whatever you like. And again, the way that we perceive it is very, very individual. I think for me, I've said it to a number of people. I think the last 9 months for me have probably been one of the strong creative times of my life spiritually, to be honest with you. And maybe it's because one is forced to sit still. I don't know. I'm a busybody anyway. I do lots of things at the same time because that's just the way I've always been. But it's been the most creative time for me. But for sure, we've all have felt the restriction of our freedomness, for sure. But anyway, they gave me a piece on the freedom of the soul, which went like this. Let us address the freedom of the soul. The soul leaves its freedom of light to decide to experience whatever that is, in whatever dimension and universe is. To experience the freedom of choice, to experience a vehicle of learning. In the human constraint, you let go of this expansiveness to select the experience within limited perception. You bind your spirit by the perception of the material world and its frequencies. Material on different levels, you understand. The material world is very much governed by your senses. The strongest is your emotional frequencies, which act like boundaries and bonds at the same time. This is where your understanding travels, always through your heart. The freedom of the spirit is therefore set aside, as the perceptual perimeters are set according to the growth of the soul. At this golden opportunistic time, you are given the chance to observe your freedom on many levels. Look around you and stand back to look at the physical limitations that this unique experience is imposing to all of you your contact of communication, your movements, your limitless of choices. It is asking you to step aside to understand the freedom of the spirit. A suggestion to help you all is to consciously stop during the day at a specific time so as to set a framework and to stay still for a few moments to observe yourself as spirit. Then look back and assimilate what you can see and what you observe. You will all leave this physical vehicle of learning to free your spirit and observing how you entered in this physical existence and how you leave to take with you the treasures of your wisdom. Enrich this experience in this manner we are suggesting, and you will see the rewards. That was in September, late September of this year. And it was interesting because it was September of this year, or at least us in Europe. And yeah, looking back, all of Europe started going off again like this. Started all reaching up again to another wave, which has led us up to the point that we are now.
Thank you for sharing that from your wonderful guides. So we're going to get on the subject of trance drawing, and you were going to do a demonstration. So I'm going to let you lead this a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When did this start? It started off really, yeah, that trance drawing again was a sort of further development of doing spirit drawing. Of course, I'm sure you can see the artwork. I come from a background, in any case, of art. So, you know, being able to draw was one thing, but to be able to draw with your eyes closed was another story altogether. And that was a little bit by accident. But anyway, I mean, so this is a drawing. I can show you one of my guides that I kept seeing for some time. He would just come along and I would look at him and he would just stand there, stare at me and stare at me and stare at me and never say a word. And then one day he stepped off where he was standing, and then I realized how unbelievably short he is and this tiny little feet he's got. But anyway, he's an Oriental man, so that's what he looks like. Oh, yeah, he's quite cute.
Did you draw him with your eyes closed?
No. I mean, I saw him quite a few times. Like I said, he would stand there and look at me and look at me and look at me and never say a word. So it took him a long time before he spoke.
It's good.
But anyway, he's cute. But so I'll show you just something of something that can be seen, I suppose, clearly here over the computer, and then I'll do a demonstration for you. But that is eyes closed.
Which is good for your eyes closed.
But what amazes me is the personality that comes through. It's the personality that comes through, and it's always fascinates me. So anyway, I've had different experiences in trance drawing. Sometimes I get a smell that comes with the person. Sometimes I get names. So, and also I love doing it. So shall we have a go?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to see how I'm going to get drawn to. Debbie. I'm told Debbie. I'll go with Debbie. That's what my guide said, Debbie. So whatever that is, Debbie. Maybe you, he's one of your guides. Well, this is what's come through. It's a gentleman that lived in the 18th century. Goes on about timing. He's going on about timing and about keeping to schedule. He wants me to tell you about, you have to put a program around things in your life. It's very important at the moment. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does.
Because I saw him and the way he was behaving, very prim and proper. And he said, I said, what is it that you want to tell her? And he said, it's very important for her now to set a schedule. And he's also telling you that you need to be making room for things. It seems he's telling you that there is a little bit of clutter that you need to put in place somehow. Because he's saying it's time for you to do that. Does that make sense to you now at this part of at this stage of your life?
Yeah, I think I just have too many irons in the fire.
Yeah, that's what was the main thing I wanted to say to you. But I don't know if you're aware of him, but he's quite correct and he's very precise. And that's the element that he's trying to help you with. Okay, so if you're resonating with that, then that's what he would like you to do. If you feel that you said you've got too many things going on that are, then you need to be differentiating. He's saying that it's time for you to be doing this. So that's the way he showed himself, that you need to maybe limit things, to be more, I think he's trying to say also to be more proactive. You need to be doing that. Yeah?
Okay. Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Okay. Anyway, you can give me your email another time and I'll just photograph it for you and I'll send it to you.
Okay, I'm going to see if anybody has any questions you would like to ask Angelina.
Yes, sure, Lisa, yeah.
Lisa.
When you talk about frequencies,
Hmm.
do you talk about light frequencies, sound frequencies? Is it a combination, or is it a different type of frequency that we're not actually aware of yet?
Okay, this is from my understanding and from what they've been telling me as well. It's sound, it's color, and it's speed. It's all of those three things. Now, the interplay, that's from what my understanding is, it interplays and they interplay as well. Because, you know, we understand a communication of language, which is called the language that we are speaking. The language of your soul, it's not words. The language of your soul is a frequency made up of all of these things. All of them. So even the understanding that you are absorbing, it's actually a frequency. We say we understand, but we understand in the words. Actually, when you think about it, even now that we are speaking together like this, if you stop for a fraction of a second, where are you really resonating? You're not resonating in your mind, you're resonating from here. You're resonating from the place of I know. And that's what's happening. So from what they have told me, and also, of course, we understand that our aura is full of color and changing, etc., and all of that stuff. But from my understanding, it's almost like there are notes of sounds, but those sounds are made up of colors as well. So there are sounds, there are colors, and there are the speed. It's the speed that changes the frequency. So it's a combination of things. That's my understanding of it.
Would that be like vibrations raising up to a higher frequency?
Yes, because when we say a frequency, it's a frequency which is measured scientifically. I mean, George is more of a science person than I am, for sure. It was not my favorite subject when I was at school, but biology was more interesting to me. But a frequency has a speed. How can it be measured otherwise, from my understanding? So this is why I mentioned that raising our frequencies, their frequencies is higher. The reason why we cannot see them is because they are moving at a faster rate than we are. That's it. It's like, you know, I don't know if you remember many, many years ago, some of us, most of us here are of a certain age, there used to be these sort of little tiny balls that used to go backwards and forwards, and they used to go really, really fast. Did you remember? It was fashionable at some point on everybody's little table. Well, if it went so fast that it just becomes light, then it becomes pure white light, because white is not a color. White is not a color. It's the frequencies of all the colors of the rainbow that go to a certain speed, and therefore it becomes pure white light.
Wouldn't you agree, on a kind of on a layman's terms, your frequency, your vibration is how far down you are. If you're in a negative vibration or frequency, you can get stuck there. Am I correct? So you have to learn to bring yourself out of that to
Yes.
reach for a higher frequency.
Yeah. So even on a simple everyday basis, if you take something simple as, if you're thinking positively, then obviously it's going to raise your vibrations. It's going to raise what you feel like in any case, right? When you are feeling happy, when you are feeling positive, therefore you are raising your vibrations. When you are feeling low and you are feeling down and you are feeling miserable, then obviously it drops your vibrations and it's slower. It is slower. It resonates slower. That's why the spirit world are resonating faster than us, because they're in the light. Now we talk about, the guides and the spirit people that are everywhere around us. And some people think that, it's an achievement to photograph because you got 3 or 4 spirit people around you. They're around everybody. They are around everybody. They gather around us the moment we sit for the light. The moment that we turn our minds into our hearts and we resonate within our spirit, they will gather around us more because they follow the light. That's
Also been my experience doing this for some time now, that the more committed you are, the more will surround you.
Yes, because look, it's like with anything, you learn to drive a car, right? If you don't practice the gears and the mirror and the whatever, you're never going to learn to drive. If you go to your house from around the corner, you will know X, Y. If you venture beyond that, then you will experience more. The same with everything. You need to be offering time to it. This doesn't mean that we have to freak out and, not do anything else. Julie will tell you, I'm always going on about playing bridge. You got to live your life. You got to be human. You got to balance your life, and you got to nurture your soul. You got to do things that give you pleasure. That's also raising your vibration. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's great, whether you go for a walk or you love being in nature or you want to go and dig your garden because you like it, or, whatever, or, that is nurturing your soul. Even if you get together with a friend, once a week and it becomes really something special, and you enjoy your wine, that is nurturing your soul. And we forget to do that very often. And so even if things are not very good and etc., and we've all been through that, and we've all been down that road and bought the t-shirts, you got to look ahead, because it's only a cycle. There's got to be a cycle that you've asked for, you have asked for, we have asked for. It's a process of learning, and try and see beyond that. And most of all, try and understand what responsibility that we have in an experience. It's not about other people all the time. It's not X or Y, Z's fault all the time. It's about learning to look where you are at, where you are participating in that experience, what aspect of you needed to have that experience, and what you are actually learning out of it. Because if you don't go through the self, then you're not going to learn anyway, because you're always looking out.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Yes, sure.
Lisa?
Sorry.
Okay.
Please.
With that in mind, my concern at the moment, and I'm not sure if others have the same concern, is that because this is a challenging time and we're meant to be allowing ourselves a more spiritual moment for this year, what concerns me is that everybody's talking about when we get back to normal. And in actual fact, I don't want to go back to normal. I want to stay with these opportunities that we have now of mixing with Europeans, Greece and the USA and everything like that, and everything that we've learned. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. There's thousands of people who have learned so much from this opportunity of the pandemic. How do we prevent then being dragged back into normality as was?
It was interesting while you were speaking to me that I will try and put into words what I'm understanding. See, what we've discovered now is actually our true sense of communication, because we were beginning to lose the communication of the word. It's wonderful. Technology came into our lives. It for sure has opened up many doors, and in fact, it has produced this. And it has given us the opportunity for, people like Julie to be putting on all these courses, very dedicated, and etc. Once this thing started in March, I mean, I felt for a long time that there was going to be a big shift. I just didn't know where it was coming from. So for a good 2.5, 3 months, every day I was on this Zoom, free, sometimes on a Wednesday, twice a day. And like you said, people from all over the world, that we had 25 people, 23 people, and it was wonderful. Why? Because they could, at 10 o'clock in the morning or at 4 o'clock in the morning in Singapore or whatever, they could open this Zoom with a cup of coffee in their hands and they could say good morning and how are you to another human being.
I think what Lisa's asking too is how do we keep it?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Now,
How do we stay in this?
this is obviously, we're going to come back to the choice, but once you've discovered this and you've opened your heart one more time to this communication, would you feel comfortable to go back to the smileys? No, you won't. So in my opinion, I agree with you totally. I think that the more you've stepped on this path, and something in your soul and in my soul and everybody else is here, has rung a note somewhere, has given you a bit of an awakening in a different direction, you will not go back. It's like when you step on your spiritual path, it's very unlikely you're going to be off it. You might stop for a while, yes. I say you're always on the plug. You might turn the switch off, but you're never going to take that plug off the wall. Because once you have experience, then you're going to go back to another circle. I think also you're going to be listening to yourself, Lisa. You are saying to me, I don't want to stop this. You're going to be seeking it. You're going to be enhancing it. You want to be developing it because it's ringing true to your heart. Isn't that so?
Yes, indeed. That is true for me on a personal level. But what concerns me is about society in general.
I don't think,
Always
to be honest
wanting
with
to
you,
get-
that we're going to get back to, I don't think the world's ever going to get back to what it was before. I'm sorry, I don't. I think there's going to be a lot of shifting around. I think this economic situation and these political situations that are going on, we haven't seen the beginning of it. I think that even you try and project ahead, okay, vaccines, whatever's going on, let's not go down that path. But if you think, unless we're going to go through that cycle and you think afterwards, all of a sudden, everything is going to be hunky-dory, no, it isn't. There's going to be an incredible ripple effect happening. And it's not going to recover that easy. And yes, there's probably going to be different plays of power going on because there's a whole shifting that is going to go on, for sure. But that's where we all have our choices. I mean, I agree with you. Once you've opened a certain door within you, you're not going to go back anyway. Never mind what the rest of the world is doing as such. Would you ever get off this path that you've discovered now? That voice within you? Exactly. I mean, that voice within me has been there. Yes, since I was a kid, I shut it down. I didn't understand it. But once I opened that door again, I must have been about 38 at the time. I never, ever, ever, ever closed it down again. Yes, very difficult times. Yes. I think there was one time that I was told that you will cry to the depths of your soul, asking yourself where you are and where you're going to. And believe me, I went through that. And we go through various phases where we are lost and we are struggling but it's part of our, I always try to look ahead. I try to say that it's okay. What am I learning out of it? And I always try to be positive.
Thank you.
And move along.
My experience, Lisa, is my life started getting back to normal. So I kind of shifted my schedule a little bit and I'm still doing it. Do you see what I'm saying? And then I started getting really busy. So now I'm squeezing in the times that I can put on blending circles on Zoom and stuff like that. So it's just us up to us to.
Yeah, you're going to make the time. Like I said, I don't think you'll ever be off it.
Just beware
of something. Yeah.
who you surround yourself with.
No, I do agree with you, and I would do that on a personal level, but I just hope there's more in society who actually will be doing that.
It is scary because when I found myself getting busy for a little bit there, I was like, okay, I can't do this. I have to squeeze in my spirit stuff, but I want to do it normal. So it is scary because we do go back to a fast pace of life.
Mm.
Either way, many of us
That's
are
our
gonna struggle.
individual challenge, I think, for sure.
Anybody else have any questions? Ray?
Yeah, sure, please.
Oh, Ray, I muted you. I'm sorry.
And there's Anika, I think.
You have to unmute yourself, Ray. Thank you.
Hi, Ray.
Ray, you muted yourself again. I don't know what's going on. Spirit wants you not to speak.
Then my computer.
Okay,
Go.
great. Hi, how are you?
Okay. I'm fine, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good, good. What are your feelings about galactic or non-terrestrial contacts in connection with trance, please?
Okay, you really want to hear? Is this going public? Is this going public? Okay, I'll say it. I don't know, who cares? Okay. In the year 2000, when the symbols first started, the first thing I wrote down was, this is the language of light. And I knew that they had nothing to do with the earth ray. I knew that they were intergalactic. I still believe that. I'll go one step further. It's not something I normally would say to people. Parentheses, for many, many, many years of my life, I had to keep a bit of a low profile because I was teaching and I was professionally teaching, and I'm still a little bit involved. I still do work for the British Council, but people know me for all these years and they even know the other side of my life. So now that I'm out of the professional zone, I don't have to worry so much about it. But why do I believe that? Because I will go back 20 years, maybe more than that. And I've had experiences at different intervals in a semi-awake state where I have been in contact with non-human and even physical beings. The first time it happened to me, like I said, it's like I'm there and I'm not really there. But the part of me that was there and interfering, the first time I said, well, it's been recorded, but I thought, oh gosh, but another part of me understood them and I felt a great deal of love for them and I could feel their love for me. So I wasn't feeling threatened in any way. Throughout the years, I would say at least 6 different encounters, quite different, from pure light, but with a physical form. But what I felt was both masculine and feminine at the same time. I don't know how I can put that to you except in the language that I'm using now. Pretty humanoid, you know, as such, but just a vibration of light. Every time there would be a new encounter, that would prepare me from before, 2 days from before, where I would come back and I knew, you know, it's like when they say to you, you have to go and do this special examination in a hospital, but take these tablets or do this diet before you go. There was something going on like that. And I would always be pre-prepared. And in my head, I'd be thinking I'd be going to a place like a hospital. There was nothing for me to see as such, but it was the feeling that I had. And some of them have been quite beautiful, but very tall beings, a couple of times, exceptionally tall, 16 foot tall, quite beautiful with rather sort of unusual proportion in their physicality, meaning that the legs might be longer than the rest of the body. But there was always that love there. So to say that, do I believe in that? I would say yes. Why? I don't think that we're the only planet in this universe, for goodness sake. I mean, this is quite pathetic for anyone to be thinking that, you know. There are universes and galaxies are beyond our understanding. also my experience from my symbols themselves. In the early stages, I remember, and they still do at times, they give me symbols and they even talk to me about what they're showing me. I remember one time there was a particular substance, and I do have a pad that I've made specific drawings going back a number of years. And the green liquid but solid color, it looked a little bit like the greeny color you have on your jacket, a little bit phosphorus. It was liquid but non-liquid, like mercury, something like that. And when I asked what it was, they said to me that it's a substance that does not exist on the earth. And it's beyond, even if we try to explain it to you, it will be beyond your understanding. But it was what that person needed. And it was a physical and a difficult illness. In fact, it was cancer, you know, and I would listen to it and I would follow it. And sometimes it will be specks like showering of pure white light, almost like watching, you know, heavy rain. Yes. So am I going to doubt that? No, I'm not going to doubt it, Ray, because I'm not mad. No.
What would your advice be to ones that are being, or we have somebody particular in our circle and in another circle that I have of light beings coming in through them? What would your advice be to develop that translation, that communication better?
Okay, again, I'm going to come back to what I always believe it should be natural. Okay, I have never pursued it, even on a simple thing. I'm going to sidetrack now. When people say, oh, you know, how do I get out of my body? I say, no, you don't try getting out of your body. If it's going to happen to you, it's going to happen to you. You do not sit there and make a thing out of it. If you're meant to be having that frequency because you already carry it within the makeup of your being, what does that mean? That means that along this line of our evolution, we may decide not to experience the earth here as a physicality.
But what would you, what I'm asking is, I know it comes natural, but sometimes you can get stuck in a certain trance where you're repeating or starting to repeat what they're saying in different phrases, but it means the same thing. How would you develop that further to come natural? I mean, would you sit more with them, or, you know, things like that?
I think this has a lot to do with the need of the medium that is bringing in this communication, to be honest with you. If I can just take you back a few years back, do you remember when everybody was talking or channeling Jesus?
Yeah.
And everybody had a Jesus and a Magdalene and Peter. This was a trend. And then we had the Osiris and this and the goddess. That was another fashionable thing. I don't deny any of these, because these are all frequencies that are the same. In what do I mean by that? You could be referring, for example, to the healing energy of the blue Buddha, and you could be referring to the blue energy of the Mother Mary. It is the same frequency.
Right.
They came into the earth in their different forms and in their different doctrines when it was necessary and correct for us to understand them. You think that if Jesus came in as a woman, anybody would have paid any attention to him?
Mm-hmm.
Let's not go down there if we believe that he's, the philosophy of it, or the Buddha, or all these people that came in at the right time. So maybe there is a need within the individual themselves. Remember that they feel comfortable, that they think that they want to be different, to be bringing in this information from this person. If they feel that they want to be comfortable there, they're going to get stuck there, Julie.
Well, I know this person has other life forms coming, other dimensions coming through them. I photographed them around This
Yes,
person.
of course it makes sense because like
But
I said,
I'm just saying the development, there's a lot more intelligence coming through
Mm.
these light beings. How I'm saying, how do you bring it through? Do you understand what I'm saying? How do you
I
open
understand what you're saying to me, but if you are already sitting yourself,
Mhm.
okay, if you're sitting for yourself and you are expecting, I remember what I said, expect the impossible, but expect nothing. But if you're sitting and you're open for your truth, then you've got to be open enough for that. But if you're sitting because you like the idea or that you resonate so much with that, then for sure you are going to be stuck there. This is not to say that, of course, you may be seeing non-physical, because remember, in between, we could be deciding to experience on some system, you have no physicality, but you're communicating on a vibrational method, in the frequency of light or sounds or whatever, and not in the physicality that we are now. We understand it because this is what we see now. This is what we vibrate on. So
Well, I know that I will tell you, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was in denial of it the whole time. I mean, that there was these beings coming through. I went through that denial, but so spirit or whatever started allowing me to photograph them. So I'm like, holy cow,
Yeah,
they really do exist.
well, look, it makes sense. Like I said to you, why is it for me, I felt that with these experiences I had, that an aspect of me knew them, and I felt love for them. Why would that happen? Because it would be an aspect of me that might have experienced that. And in between doesn't mean that every time we assume that we reincarnate back on the earth every time. No, we don't. Why should we?
I agree.
So I'm all open to that. I would not narrow my thinking to any of that.
I am myself now.
Yeah.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any questions?
I do have a two-part question. Hi,
Mhm.
Angelina.
Hi there.
What is a really good routine? What is your ideal routine to keep you in a really positive place, to stay in that high vibration each week? And what do you do knowing what you know about what they have shared with you to get yourself back into that high frequency? What have you found that has been really successful for you? Because we can't control what other people do. So
Yes.
if we have an experience or a person in our life that does throw us off and bring us down, what have you found, knowing what you have been told and trying those things out, what have you found that has been really successful for you to bring yourself back up out of that?
Okay, let's first of all go on the physical, where we are dealing with people that we are not comfortable with, right? We've all got that, or they probably might be thinking that about us anyway, in any case, the other way around, for sure. But I think that depending on what kind of relationship we are dealing with, all right, if we can detach ourselves from a regular contact with particular people, then let it be our choice. We do have that choice. If you do not have that choice, then we need to change our perception a little bit. Okay? You got to change your perception. That's the only way. Remember, you are still frequency. You are responding. They are reflecting from you. You'd be quite amazed. So what you've got to deal with is your part. Deal with your part first. This is what I had a conversation just briefly a couple of hours ago when somebody mentioned something. And I said, see from your point of view first. It's not easy, but you got to work from your space first. Change your perception, change your understanding, and you'll be quite amazed how a slight degree of your perception would immediately shift all of your energy. Because it's what you're perceiving. It's what you're perceiving, it's what you're feeling, it's what you're taking in, and then it becomes the other way around. It becomes like a boomerang the other way around. So if we can't change a situation, we've got to change our perception towards it. It's the only way to deal with it. So that's my answer to that one. When it comes to, you mentioned about keeping our frequencies, I will go back to the same thing. Find a little bit of time. Half an hour ago, there was a sentence there that said, try and find every day, try and do it on a regular, because it makes a difference. Julie said, I found that when we get together, etc. If you try and keep to a certain time, it might be easier for you before you go in the shower. Doesn't matter. When you're by yourself, remember and tell yourself, this was my day, but I am spirit. I am spirit. And therefore, if I'm spirit, how do I observe my life? Another thing that I found really, I'll come back to that in a minute. The other thing is you've got to, if you can, give yourself a little bit of a longer time to sit within, bringing your mind within your heart, so that you are spending a little bit of time and then breathing in, you know, relaxing, bringing in the light and washing your, you know, people may say, oh, I've heard all these, you know, business before. But if you understand that you are light and you are frequency, you're a multifaceted, incredible, beautiful light being, the best thing you can do is just to bring light into your body once a day. And even if it's 10 minutes, do that on a regular basis, because you're actually helping yourself to touch the essence of who you are. The other thing that I found that I've actually put into practice myself, and I've actually told a number of people to try it, and I think it works. When you're sometimes stuck in a situation and you're dealing with difficult emotional things, if you just physically stand up and take a few steps back, literally step a meter and a half back, and say to yourself, I am observing Anika now. So bring the situation to you, physically move away though, so you're actually making yourself do it. And then just observe yourself. It'd be like watching a movie. Why? Because you've detached yourself emotionally from that scene. And then what am I saying to you in essence? You've changed your perception. You've detached yourself from the emotional. And there you're able to see it, because you'd be quite surprised. We've all done it. When you look at ourselves and you think, gee, that's a bit stupid. What are they doing that for, you know? But once we're in that situation, we tend to be repeating ourselves. So from a practical level, that's what I do very often. And it helps me.
Sometimes I just go, I'm not going to allow them to have my power. If I'm finding anger coming up, it's really hard to do.
But you got to do something, right?
Yeah.
You can't be passive. You remember we have choices. Remember, so we have choices.
That's the interesting thing about this, is how do you keep that strength? But I love that idea of stepping back, because then when you see yourself differently, it gives you the answer right away.
It gives
That's
you
amazing.
a different perspective. That's why I said physically do it. I find that if I tell people do it, and sometimes I get people when they, you know, when sometimes I see people at home and I say, please get up. And I'll say, do it, move. Come on, do it with me. You know, move a meter and a half. Now look. And then they're sort of a bit shocked, you know, because you're looking at it without, you see, you get sucked into that emotional situation. Whereas if you just move away, it immediately releases you a little bit from it. Of course, you can watch a movie and watch Angelina Jolie, you know, going gaga over, you know, Brad Pitt or whatever. When you stand away and you know it's not you, you're responding to it because it's a movie, but it's not you. And that's the difference. You know, it's like you detach yourself away from it. So try it.
Thank you. I will. Thank you.
I've also found to sit every day and meditate.
Of course. Yeah.
It helps you and it helps build your
A
frequency.
lot.
It's been great, Angelina. Thank you so much. I do know that Angelina and I we have a class together. We teach for free. At this point, if anybody's interested in joining the future classes, just let us know. Angelina is available if you want to message her, ask her any questions, or get a reading from her or anything like that. Okay, thank you, Angelina. Do you have any last words to say before I?
I think somebody else was wanting to ask a question, so
No, I didn't. I'm sorry.
I think so.
Somebody
That's
else?
fine with me. Yes, Margaret.
You're muted, Margaret. You're muted, Margaret.
Mute it.
can you unmute yourself?
Go, that's it. There you
Right.
go.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I think you've partly answered a question from a young man that spoke before, and this is regarding your symbols that you do. I'm interested in how you feel when you tap into giving a symbol to someone. Having had you give me a symbol, or I think you've done it 3 times now. The other thing that I found fascinating was actually putting your hand over that symbol and feeling that energy from it. That, I think that spaced me out the first time I did it. So if you could enlarge on that, I'd be grateful.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, actually, I've got some here, and they go back a long way. I block the name out like this, so they're all very, very different.
Uh-huh.
Now, there's a bit of color on them because I do not see them in color. I see them as neutral, like this wall. Well, this looks white, but I see them as beige, like a stone. They're large, they vibrate, they have a sound. It took me 2 years to get mine. In the year 2000, the first one appeared, and that was in obviously sitting in a meditation. But I felt the power of it and the size of it. I'll say it again. I'm blessed to be quite visual, so I can actually, if I'm observing something, it's like I can move myself behind something and take a really good look, and then zoom back like a camera. So I'm able to see the details of it. So at some, anyway, it took me 2 years to get 7 of them. I didn't understand what they were, except the 7 that I had all belonged to the same group, if you like you see musical notes, like you see the Arabic alphabet. And then the information came 2 years later that they were given to me to use on myself. And it's like I already knew how to use them, you know, which was something that they verified. They said that I had done this in more than one lifetime, so that I was aware and I had an understanding. But later on, I suddenly realized a little bit by accident that if I just sort of tuned into somebody, then I always see it in their heart center. So I always see it here. Now, from my experience all these years, I find them very, very individual. So in other words, if I give this symbol now and I give it to Julie and it's your symbol, Margaret, it's not going to work on her because it actually resonates with her frequency. So it's very personal. They tell me how many times to use it. And I have, over the years, after quite many years of using them, I can actually use it now, and I can almost do a reading from the symbol because it gives me information about the person. What is incredible is that some of these are just showing you, they go back 10 years, they go back 12 years. And these are copies, because if I can, I give the original to the person that I'm working with. And these have got a plastic coating on top, so I use them sometimes when I'm in workshops. What is fascinating is that after all these years, these are copies. And if you run your hands over them, like Margaret said, you can feel their frequency and their vibration. And they are so different. You can have one on the left and one on the right. And, you know, if you just kind of relax and then they feel different. They feel different. The temperature might be different. What you feel will be different. And there've been all sorts of sort of experiences sometimes if people wanted to share and they can write to me. I had one lady, I remember it was in Japan, it was a number of years ago anyway. The symbol that I gave her basically said to her that there were 3 areas in her life that she'd been very, very stuck on for a very long time. And that the answer to them was a lot simpler than she thought. So I told her, and I always teach them and I give them a handout on how to use it. And she used it and she came back and she said she actually heard an answer to the first problem that she'd been carrying for years. And she said it was the most simple answer that she would have never thought of. So that would have, that's sort of somebody's experience there. Another person wrote to me many years ago and said that they had gone to New Zealand and they had gone to a museum of indigenous tribes and their symbol was there.
That's amazing. I do
Yeah.
have to cut it short a little bit, Angelina.
Sorry?
I have a deadline I have an appointment
yeah.
I have to go to.
So, yeah. So I don't know where they come from. For me, I answered your question, Ray. I've always said that they were galactical to me. And they do carry this incredible energy. I see them, I feel them, and then I just pass that information on to whoever's in front of me. And I just trust that, they will, it needs to be activated by the person that is receiving it. So I just give them a handout, plus I go through it with them so they know how to activate it. So you're activating an energy that resonates within you. That's how they work. Yeah? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, everybody, I really want to thank you deeply for joining me, for trusting me, for giving me this opportunity to share, all that I've known all these years. Some of you are already connected to Ray, I've known for some time, and he's got lovely communication that he gets. Some of you people I have known for 30 years of my life. And I hold you very dear to me. So I want to thank all of you. And then people thank you, Julie, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brandon, for joining. Anika, I haven't seen you before. Debbie, all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for
Thank
coming.
you, Julie.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Guys.
Bye.
Bye.